Hello guys, this is your fanfic dojo and we are back with our new fanfic, which is What If Naruto Was Trained to Unite All Tailed Beast Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and please subscribe to the channel. It motivates me to upload more fanfic like these for you all. Now let's start the fanfiction. Kanahagakure no Sato, the village hidden in the leaves, was a peaceful place, a village known for its exceptional ninja, and its accepting and compassionate inhabitants. It was for this reason that many ninja clans flocked to Konoha and called the village home. But underneath this peaceful and accepting surface, was a boy, his life shrouded in mystery, and hated by the village he was sacrificed to save. A young boy, no older than 6, ran through the darkened streets of Konoha, weaving in between villagers with practiced ease. The boy's normally spiky blonde hair was matted down with dirt and blood seeping from a wound on the back of his head, his ragged and torn clothes barely hanging onto his malnourished body. A large mob of angry villagers burst from the crowd, each with a makeshift weapon in hand. Seeing the mob, the boy made a break for it down a side alley, the roars of the mob echoing in his ears. "Why do they always do this? I haven't done anything," thought the boy as he turned down another ally, hoping to lose the mob before they had a chance to catch him. Sadly, his hopes were for naught as he realized too late that the ally he ran down was a dead end. The light from the street behind began to darken as multiple shadows blocked the way. Slowly turning around, the young boy came face to face with the rage and contempt-filled faces of the mob that had been chasing him. A pink-haired woman stepped forward, pointing a kitchen knife threateningly at the trapped blonde. "Time to die, demon," she screeched, causing many of the civilians around her to flinch slightly at the volume. "Get him." The mob didn't need to be told twice, they raced towards the freighted blonde, their makeshift weapons raised to strike. The boy knew only pain as the civilians brought whatever they could use as a weapon down on his frail body. For hours the angry villagers assaulted the boy, beating him, stabbing him, cutting him. By the time they were done, it was hard to tell that the pile of bruised and bleeding flesh was even human. The same pink-haired woman who seemed to be the leader of the mob, stalked towards the twisted mangled heap that was once Naruto Uzumaki. "This is the end for you, Kyuubi. Finally we will have avenged Minato-kun and everyone you killed 6 years ago," she said, her screeching voice echoing in the alley. She raised the knife she had in her hand and in one swift motion, brought the blade down, embedding it in young Naruto, piercing his right lung. "Alright, now let's get out of here before any Anbu show up," she screeched before the mob quickly dispersed. Naruto lay in the alley, beaten, broken and dying. The pain he felt from his injuries long forgotten, replaced by the numbing hold of one about to die. "Why?" he thought as he fought to open his eyes even a little. "Why do they always do this? What have I done to deserve this?" Unknown to the young blonde, a powerful entity was awakening inside of his body and was viewing young Naruto's memories. Naruto's mind. A deep rumbling echoed throughout the dark corners of Naruto's mind as his demonic tenant finished viewing the memories of Naruto's life. "How can these humans do this to a mere child?" said the Kyuubi to itself as he turned his gaze to the paling image of Naruto at the base of the seal. "They may call me a demon, but they are the only true monsters in this world. Come on, Kit. You can't die on me like this," mumbled Kyuubi before sending his chakra into the boy's body, healing the otherwise fatal wounds he had sustained at the hands of the villagers. Slowly the color began to return to the image of Naruto, and his eyes began to flutter open. The first thing that met Naruto's sapphire gaze was the eerie red glow of the Kyuubi's demonic chakra. "Huh, where am I?" the newly healed blonde thought as he took in his surroundings. He seemed to be in a sewer of some kind, leaking pipes littered the walls and ceilings and they seemed to give off a strange bluish glow. Struggling to his feet, the blonde Jinchuriki noticed that the eerie glow around him was fading and retreating into what appeared to be a cage that replaced one of the walls of the sewer. Looking into the cage, Naruto saw nothing but a dark expanse that seemed to swallow everything around it. "What the?" He was cut off when two blood-red, slitted eyes snapped open behind the cage, followed shortly by a deep, rumbling voice. "Do not be afraid, little one, I shall not harm you," said the Kyuubi when it saw Naruto's panicked expression. The young blonde's panic slowly faded away, only to be replaced by confusion as he continued to look around him, trying to figure out where he was. As if reading his mind, Kyuubi gave Naruto the answer he was looking for: "We are in your mind, young one." This only served to confuse the blonde even more as he turned back to face the two red eyes behind the cage. "What do you mean in my mind? How'd I get here?" said Naruto, the last part more to himself, but the Kyuubi heard it easily. "The last thing I remember is," his voice trailed off as he tried to focus on what had happened to him earlier. The harder he tried to remember the happenings of just a few hours ago, the more the memories seemed to elude him. "Why can't I remember?" whispered Naruto before meeting the gaze of the two demonic eyes, subconsciously knowing that the owner had the answers he wanted. Understanding exactly what the blonde was silently asking, the Kyuubi readied itself for the conversation at hand. "You're wondering why you cannot remember what happened?" Getting a curious nod from the boy, Kyuubi continued, "It's simple, I am keeping them from you." "But why? They're my memories, I should be allowed to know them," said Naruto, a frown spreading across his face as he glared at the two eyes accusingly. Completely unfazed by the 6-year-old's attempt at intimidation, the Kyuubi decided to stop beating around the bush and get right to heart of the conversation. "Yes, they are your memories, and yes, you should be allowed to see them. But what you don't understand is what will happen if you do. You see, while we are in your mind, any memory you think about will play out before you, and right now that is the last thing you need to see," said the Kyuubi. Seeing Naruto about to retort, Kyuubi decided to change the subject. "Tell me, young one, what is your name?" Caught off guard at the sudden question, Naruto could only blink dumbly for few seconds before responding. "Naruto Uzumaki," he said with pride, his normal personality slowly starting to return. Kyuubi smirked slightly at the blonde's attitude. "I'm starting to like this Gaki more and more. Alright then, tell me, Naruto, do you have a dream, something you would work hard for?" It was like a switch had been flipped inside the boy. Naruto's exuberant and happy personality returned with a vengeance and he stood to his full height, pointing a thumb at his chest. "To be Hokage, that's my dream. That way everyone will have to acknowledge me and respect me. I'll become stronger than all of the Hokages combined, you'll see." Kyuubi couldn't help it as his smirk widened at the blonde's antics and declaration. "Hey, looks like getting him to agree to my idea won't be as hard as I first thought. So you want to be Hokage?" Must Kyuubi allowed, getting another confident nod from the blonde. "Well, if you're going to be Hokage, you'll need to train hard, and the first thing you can do is drop that mask of yours." Naruto frowned slightly at that statement. How did this person know about his mask? "I don't know what you're talking about," mumbled the blonde, looking away from the red eyes that were watching him closely. "You know very well what I am talking about. You may be able to hide it from everyone else, but I have seen the memories of your life through your own eyes. You cannot hide your true self from me, kid, and it's time you stopped hiding it from yourself," Kyuubi said with more force than he had intended. Despite his little slip, he got the response he wanted. Naruto met his gaze again, but this time the enthusiastic spark in his eyes had dimmed. "Good, now I have a proposition for you." The young blonde raised an eyebrow in interest, silently asking for the Kyuubi to continue. "I would like to train you, so that what happened tonight will not happen again. But be warned, should you agree to the training, you will do exactly as I say with no arguing, understand?" For several minutes, Naruto stood motionless before the Kyuubi's cage, silently debating whether or not to accept the offer. On the one hand, he was being offered a chance to be trained by someone who was obviously powerful, if the aura around him was any indication. But on the other hand, he had no idea who this person was, and they wouldn't even let him view his own memories, though if the nagging feeling the back of his mind was right, he probably didn't want to know. Naruto debated over this for a few more minutes before finally meeting the Kyuubi's gaze once again, a spark of determination burning in his eyes. "I accept your offer." Kyuubi smiled, his first true smile in over 50 millennia. "Very well then, we will begin tomorrow after your body has fully recovered from tonight. Now I believe I forgot to introduce myself. I am the Kyuubi no Kitsune, the nine-tailed fox, and my name is Kurama." Naruto froze when Kurama introduced himself. He couldn't believe the person, or fox in this case, before him was the most powerful being in existence. "The Kyuubi no Kitsune, but how?" "Hokage Jiji said the Yondaime killed you," shouted Naruto as he slowly began to back away from the cage. Kurama sighed knowing this had been coming since the start of the conversation. "No Naruto, as you can plainly see I am not dead. The Yondaime couldn't kill me. No human has the power to kill a Biju. But he did the next best thing. He sealed me away inside of you. You are what are known as a Jinchuriki, a human sacrificed in order to protect others. That is the reason the people of this village hate you. They do not see an innocent child, they see only what I have done to them. I am truly sorry you have been forced to live this life, a life I wouldn't wish upon even the most foul creatures," said Kurama, his sorrow and regret plain in his voice. In that moment, Naruto saw the Kyuubi for what it really was, a misunderstood being, forced into being what they were at birth, the same as himself. Completely forgetting his previous fear, Naruto slowly approached the cage before passing through the bars without hesitation. Kurama's eyes snapped open when he felt something small touch his snout. Naruto stood before him, slowly petting his reddish-orange fur, completely unafraid that he was now completely vulnerable. "We're the same, we were both made what we are at birth, we had no control over that. But what we do have control over is what we do with what we were given," said Naruto as he looked Kurama in the eye. "So when do we start that training?" he said with a smirk. Kurama smirked in return. "We'll start first thing tomorrow, but for now go home and rest. Oh, and you might want to pull the knife in your lung out," said the Kyuubi before Naruto was ejected from his mind. Naruto sat bolt upright, his breathing raged. What the hell? He thought before he was suddenly hit with a flood of memories. The mob, the beating, the knife in his chest, everything came back to him like he had never forgotten. "Damn them, one day they'll pay for what they did," mumbled Naruto before he noticed the black handle of the kitchen knife sticking out of his flesh. Grabbing onto the handle, Naruto slowly started pulling the blade out, feeling the injury heal as he did. When the blade was finally out, Naruto watched in fascination as the remainder of the wound healed itself, not even leaving a scar. "Kurama, did you do that?" he asked out loud. "Yes, Kit, I did, and don't talk out loud. If you want to speak to me then just think it. Oh, and keep that knife with you. Let it serve as a remainder of this night to help motivate you to improve faster," said the voice of the Kyuubi no Kitsune from inside Naruto's head. "Alright, well I guess I better get back home. It's probably safe to assume you have a busy day planned for me tomorrow," thought Naruto as he started to slowly make his way home, being sure to avoid the main roads and sticking to alleyways. "Kit, you have no idea," thought Kurama to himself before curling up in his cage and falling asleep. The next morning, Naruto awoke to the sun shining in his eyes through a tear in his curtains. Cracking one eye open, he slowly sat up rubbing the sleep from his eyes. "Alright Gaki, get ready real fast and then find a secluded place where I can train you," said the demonic voice of Kurama inside of the young blonde's head. Said blonde's eyes shot open in excitement before he jumped out of bed and bolted for the bathroom. Going through his usual morning ritual, Naruto quickly brushed his teeth, took a shower before going to his closet to put on some clothes. Opening his closet revealed a sea of orange of jumpsuits with a few shirts and pants hanging off to the side. "No way in hell is my Jinchuriki going to be caught dead wearing that. Put on some of those darker clothes that are hanging off to the side," said Kurama, annoyed that his host had such unsuitable clothing. Not wanting to anger his new sensei, Naruto grabbed a pair of black baggy cargo pants and a skin-tight black t-shirt. After he was dressed, Naruto went to his kitchen to prepare some breakfast, only to be stopped by his new sensei when he opened his cupboards. Don't even think of eating any of that ramen crap, go out and get something nutritious and healthy to eat. Naruto couldn't stop the frown that crossed his lips before trying to explain this to his sensei. Trust me, Kurama, I would if I could. Ramen is great and all, but it gets old after eating it so many times, but there's a reason why it's the only thing I ever eat. The stores and markets refuse to sell me anything else, and the only restaurant that will let me in is the ramen stand that Tsukijiji and Ayame-Nisan own. Well, Kit, it looks like it's time for your first lesson to begin. I want you to sneak into a store and steal some fruit for breakfast. This will help you work on your stealth and infiltration skills as a shinobi, said Kurama, taking up his role as a sensei very naturally. Naruto would have argued, but thought better of it and just decided to go along with it. Exiting his apartment, Naruto made sure the door was locked before he started making his way towards the market district, which was close to opening. Arriving at the main road of the village, Naruto quickly hid in an alley and watched the shops for even a slight opening to snag himself something to eat. After 20 agonizing minutes, not helped in the slightest by his growling stomach, Naruto saw an opening when a shop owner went into his back room for something. Not willing to pass up the opportunity, the young blonde ran towards the store, careful not to be seen, and slipped inside without jostling the bell on the door. Taking a quick look around for where his targets were, Naruto saw a stand with fruit crates, unfortunately sitting right next to the door to the back room. Hesitating for only a second, Naruto quickly made his way across the shop and grabbed a few pieces of fruit, storing them in his pockets. A triumphant smirk appeared on his lips as he patted himself on the back for a job well done, only for his eyes to widen when he heard the handle on the door next to him jiggle. His breath caught in his throat as the door opened slightly and a foot appeared from the doorway, pushing the door the rest of the way open. Reacting on pure instinct, Naruto slid himself in between the fruit stand and a stand of vegetables to keep from being seen. Fortunately for him, the storekeeper was busy lifting 3 large boxes and grumbling to himself to take notice. Watching the man walk away with his load, Naruto quickly slipped into the back room and found a door leading out into an alley. Smiling to himself at his first bit of successful training, Naruto took out a pear from his pocket and took a bite out of it. Not bad, Kit, but had the man not been preoccupied at the time, he would have spotted you easily. We'll have to work on your stealth some more during our training, said Kurama, raining on Naruto's parade. All right, Kurama-sensei, sighed the blonde as he slowly made his way towards a training ground he knew no one ever used. Training ground 43. 10 minutes later. All right, Kurama-sensei, what are we doing first? Asked Naruto once he was seated in the middle of a fairly large training ground, overlooking what appeared to be a dark forest surrounded by a barbed wire fence. First, we need to assess your skill level. I trust you have been taught how to access your chakra, right? Naruto outwardly nodded. Yeah, we just learned to do that at the academy. Alright then, I want you to focus and draw out as much of your chakra as possible. Nodding in understanding, Naruto formed the ram seal and began focusing on his chakra. Seconds became minutes, and just as Kurama was about to give Naruto some advice, said blonde released a massive amount of chakra, easily matching an average chunin. Damn, I knew the kid would have large reserves, but what he's putting out right now should be impossible for his age, even for a Jinchuriki, thought Kurama as he continued to watch his new pupil draw on his chakra. So he has monstrous reserves but not much control over it. That's about all I can test him in right now. He hasn't learned anything else in that academy that could be useful right now. Alright, Kit, that's enough, said Kurama as his host slowly stopped drawing out his chakra. So how'd I do, sensei? Asked Naruto, momentarily forgetting to speak in his mind. Not bad, Kit. Your chakra reserves are extremely large for your age, but your control over it is pathetic, said Kurama, not even trying to sugarcoat things for his Jinchuriki. Naruto nodded in understanding. It explained why he couldn't sense much when the other kids flared their chakra in class and why the senseis there panicked when he flared his. Since your chakra control is so bad, we'll start with that. Now I want you to grab multiple leaves and stick them to your body with chakra. Wordlessly standing up, Naruto walked over to one of the many trees that surrounded the training ground and picked up a handful of fallen leaves. Moving back to his original position, Naruto sat down and placed the leaves all over his body before trying to get them to stick with chakra. Surprisingly, the task proved much easier than Naruto had expected, but he was only able to make a few stick while others were fluttering an inch off of body. Just as I thought, with his large reserves it's difficult for him to use small amounts of chakra, but by using more chakra at once to learn control, we can slowly begin to decrease the amount chakra he uses, thought Kurama as he watched as a few more leaves stuck to the blonde's body. Slowly the hours went by, and Naruto still remained in his position in the middle of the training ground, over 20 leaves sticking to his body. Hey, it's starting to get easier, thought Naruto when he felt the drain on his chakra slowly begin to decrease. Kurama noticed this as well and decided it was time to increase the difficulty. Kid, stop with the exercise for now. Slightly confused at why his sensei wanted him to stop, Naruto slowly let the leaves fall from his body before returning his attention to his tenant. We're going to make things harder for you. I want you to stick 4 leaves to your body. But you have to make them stick at your wrist and at your ankles, 1 for each. This will force you to spread your chakra evenly throughout your body, while at the same time forcing you to decrease the amount of chakra you are using. Nodding in understanding, the blonde picked up 4 leaves and put 1 on each of his ankles, then 1 on each wrist before trying to make them stick to his body again. This task proved to be easier said than done as Naruto was having enough trouble just getting his chakra to spread throughout his body evenly. Come on, why isn't this working? Thought Naruto as he kept trying to force more and more chakra through his coils. Minutes passed and still the blonde was unable to stick the 4 leaves to his body. Frustrated, Naruto tried once again to force his chakra to spread throughout his body, only to cry out in pain as a burning sensation spread over his body. Opening his eyes, Naruto saw several vibrant red lines burning under his skin on his arms. Checking over the rest of his body, Naruto saw the same red lines everywhere as burning sensation slowly died down. What the hell was that? That was you trying to force too much chakra through your coils at once. Chakra is a part of you, it is an extension of your physical and spiritual being, you cannot force it to do anything. You must let it flow, you must feel your chakra inside you and will it to do what you want. Naruto was slightly taken aback by the intensity in his sensei's voice while he lectured him or his mistake, but nodded nonetheless. For now meditate, it will let your body heal and will allow you to work on communing with your chakra, said Kurama as he took a few calming breaths. He too was surprised at the force he used as he lectured Naruto, but let it go as nothing. Following his sensei's instructions, Naruto relaxed his body and began to meditate to allow his body to heal and to commune with his chakra. As time began to pass, Naruto was slowly getting deeper and deeper into his meditative state, his sensei watching over him as he did. Naruto's eye snapped open when he felt something collide with him, but to his utter shock, he was no longer in the middle of the training ground. He seemed to be floating in the middle of a white expanse that had no end. Crimson-red veins littered the area around him, but it was the giant ball of blue energy that was kept lashing out in random intervals that had his attention. That is your chakra kit, said the voice of Kurama from behind the blonde. Whirling around, Naruto saw the Kyuubi no Kitsune in all his glory standing behind him. Where are we, Kurama? What happened? Asked Naruto, his shock at the current situation clear in his voice. We are in your mind, Kit, said the mighty fox as he observed the area around them. My mind? But wait, I thought my mind looked like a sewer. Not this, Naruto said, his confusion growing. True, but we are much deeper into your mind now, we are at your core. The sewer you saw before was only the surface of your mind, a defense mechanism that you subconsciously created to protect yourself, Kurama said as a look of slight understanding crossed Naruto's face. What you see before you is the core of your being. The veins that mark this area as my chakra inside of you, that giant blue orb is your chakra. As you can tell, it is wild and uncontrolled. If you wish to become a stronger ninja, you will have to learn to control and commune with your chakra properly. With that, Kurama vanished from Naruto's core, leaving behind a confused blonde. Turning to his now identified core, Naruto watched as it continued to thrash uncontrollably. His sensei's words ringing through his mind as he continued to watch the uncontrolled chakra lash out. I must commune with my core, he thought before he slowly approached the unstable mass of chakra. My chakra is a part of me, it is an extension of who I am. Slowly, Naruto reached his hand out and placed it on the outer surface of his chakra. Instantly, warmth spread over his body as he was pulled into the chakra core. I must let my chakra flow, but bend it my will. His core began to slowly stabilize itself, its thrashing becoming less and less frequent as it slowly formed into a perfect sphere around the young blonde. Naruto couldn't believe what he was experiencing. His skin was tingling from the sensation of being one with his chakra, and for the first time in his life, he truly felt at peace. Kurama watched all of this from the seal, and he couldn't help the smirk that graced his features as his host began to commune with his chakra. He finally figured it out, he certainly has the potential to become great. The fox continued to watch over his host's body as he continued his meditation, a frown slowly replacing his smirk as a feeling of sudden doom spread through his body. For some reason, I can't shake the feeling that something will happen to the boy, something disastrous. I just hope this doesn't turn out like the last time I had this feeling. 2 years later, standing in the middle of his usual training ground, was Naruto Uzumaki, completely unmoving, and looking for the entire world like he was relaxing. His eyes snapped open suddenly and he began what appeared to be a kata for a taijutsu style. The young blonde moved effortlessly through every punch, kick and feint. If anyone had been watching him, they probably would have thought he was dancing more than training. Ending with a quick side kick, Naruto returned to his relaxed position and began to relax from the training. Alright kid, that's enough for today, said the Kyuubi from his cage inside of the blonde's mind. You have done well today kid, go treat yourself to some ramen. Naruto perked up at that and after finishing his cool down, ran off towards his favorite ramen stand. Naruto ignored the usual glares he got from the villagers, too excited about having some of the most heavenly ramen on the planet. When the familiar ramen stand came into view, Naruto ran the rest of the way and rushed right into the stand before taking a seat at the bar. Hey Tsuki Jiji, Ayame Nisan, said to the father-daughter pair that owned the small stand. Hey Naruto, finished your training for the day? Asked Tsuki with a smile at the blonde Jinchuriki. Returning the smile, Naruto nodded in the affirmative. Yeah, I just finished, so I thought I'd come by and get some of your heavenly ramen, old man. Tsuki gave a deep chuckle before going into the back to get ready to make the Naruto's ramen. So Naruto-kun, what will you have today? Asked Ayame. 5 bowls of miso ramen please. Ayame nodded before turning to the small window into the back room. 5 miso dad, she shouted. Coming right up. Tsuki shouted back from the kitchen. Naruto smiled as he and Ayame started talking about anything and everything under the sun, while Tsuki cooked Naruto's ramen. I guess this is what having a family feels like, thought Naruto as he and Ayame continued to talk with Tsuki joining them after placing Naruto's order in front of him. It continued this way for hours. Even after Naruto had finished his ramen, he refused to leave the small stand or the people he thought of as family. Hey Naruto, said Tsuki, bringing the blondes and his attention to him. They were slightly unnerved by the unusually serious expression the normally jovial ramen chef had on, but paid attention nonetheless. What do you think of the idea joining our family? Naruto couldn't believe his ears. the man he thought of as a father figure had just asked him if he would like to join his family. The thought of having an actual family was a little much for the blonde, who was silently crying a few tears of joy. Ayame saw the tears and immediately went around the counter to give Naruto a hug. Shish, it's okay Naruto-kun, she whispered. Naruto held onto her as if his life depended on it. He was just so overwhelmed that he might actually get to have a family. After a few minutes, Naruto managed to calm enough so that he could speak again. Do you really mean it, old man? You want me to join your family? Tsuki smiled at the boy and rubbed his head a little. Of course I mean it, Naruto. I've always wanted a son and Ayame here has always wanted a little brother she can dote on. So what do you say? Want join the Ichiraku family? Naruto could only nod a yes, his emotions overcoming him again. Ayame squealed in excitement, tightening her hold on Naruto, while Tsuki laughed at the sight. The family-to-be was brought out of their happy thoughts by the sound of voice from the front of the store. Well, isn't this just the sweetest thing? Sneered a Junin as he entered the ramen stand. The three occupants turned to the sound of the voice only to come face to face with no less than 5 Chunin being led by the Junin who spoke. It looks like the two of you are more deranged than I thought, offering that demon a place in your family. How pathetic, he scoffed. With a quick hand signal, 2 of the Chunin shot forward and grabbed Tsuki and Ayame, throwing them to the floor in front of the Junin, while a third restrained Naruto. You know, people like you disgust me. Associating with filth like that demon, befouling the pure streets of our village, how can you live with yourself? Said the Junin, his voice holding nothing but contempt for the 2 civilians in front of him. And you, he said turning his attention to Naruto, you don't even deserve to live, you wretched demon, and yet you walk our village, mocking us with your very presence. Well, now it's our turn. You killed our family and loved ones all those years ago, and now we'll return the favor. Naruto's eyes widened in fear before he started struggling against the man holding him down, his heart breaking at the thought of losing Tsuki and Ayame. You know what to do, said the Junin turning to the remaining 2 Chunin behind him. They nodded before they both pulled out a kunai and stalked towards the 2 trapped civilians. No! Screamed Naruto as he finally managed to free one of his arms from his attacker. Elbowing the man in the face, Naruto broke out of his loosened hold and charged the Chunin who were only a few inches away from their victims. Before he could do anything though, he was knocked into the back wall by the Junin and the 3 Chunin grabbed him and held him back. You think you can stop us, demon? The Junin said with a twisted smirk on his face. I guess you trying to save these 2 disgraces is to be expected. After all, who else would be stupid enough to befriend a demon? Leave them alone. If you want to kill someone, kill me. Screamed Naruto as he continued to thrash and struggle against the Chunin. Oh, believe me, we will kill you, but those 2 have to go first. Hokage-sama was very specific with his instructions. Let the demon know the pain of lose that he has caused to our village before you kill him. Make him feel the same pain we felt when he killed our loved ones by killing his loved ones. Naruto's eyes widened in shock. Hokage Gigi ordered them to do this. Inside the seal Kurama was cursing up a storm. Kami, damn it, I hate it when those feelings of mine are right. I can't do a thing to help. Damn you, Yondaime Hokage. Kit, come on, you have to stop them. If you don't, something big is gonna happen. But it was too late. The Junin had given the order to the 2 Chunin and the so willingly carried out the deed. Time to stop for Naruto as he watched as his future family was taken from him. Tsuki didn't even flinch as the blade slit his throat, his rage at the perpetrators permanently etched on his face. Ayame managed to turn around in time to face Naruto, but she couldn't stop the kunai that pierced her heart. As she fell to the floor, she one last thing with her dying breath. Naruto, I love you, Otudo. Naruto world shattered. Hearing Ayame call him her Otudo was too much. His body fell limp as he stopped struggling against his captives. The lifeless bodies of Tsuki and Ayame burned into his memory. Tsuki Gigi, Ayame Nisan, I loved you guys like you were my family, thought Naruto with head down, his hair casting a shadow over his eyes. This cursed village has taken my only true family from me, and someone I considered family was the one to order it. Unknown to anyone but Kurama, something inside of Naruto was awakening, something long thought to be myth. How does it feel, demon, to have those you care for taken from you? Now you know the pain you brought to this village, and now we will take our revenge for you have done. Uruka, Kotetsu, Azumo, hold him up, I want to see the life leave him when I kill him. The three Chunin holding Naruto smirked at their superior's command before they forced Naruto into a standing position, his hair still shadowing his eyes. Inside the seal, Kurama was frozen in shock at what was taking place just a few feet away from him. The leaky pipes that resembled Naruto's chakra coils were sealing themselves and his chakra was flowing much more steadily inside them. But the thing that held the fox's attention was the silhouette of a man that was slowly approaching his cage. The only things that could be seen on the silhouette were the monk's staff he carried and the necklace with 6 blood-red magatama he wore. Unlike the rest of body, however, his eyes were clear as day, a metallic purple with a dot-like pupil with 4 concentric circles surrounding it, giving them a rippling effect. Kurama, it's good to see you again, my child, said the figure once he was standing in front of the seal. Sage Jiji, whispered the Kyuubi no Kitsune in awe. Wait, you're dead. We watched you die in front of us. Yes, my child, I have indeed crossed over to the other side. But have you forgotten, my son? He who holds the Rinnegan is above the cycle of life and death. With the last of my chakra I have sent my spirit back to this plane because I sensed my true heir was about to awaken his birthright, the silhouette said, causing the Kyuubi's eyes to widen in realization. Are you saying that the kid is your heir? Yes, my child, and it is time that he receive my blessing. The silhouette raised his staff slightly before tapping it on the floor. A ringing echoed throughout the seal before it started to shift. The dark dreary walls of the cell became 3 torii gates with wooden pillars filling the normal gate openings while the bars of the cell became wooden and the paper seal was replaced with a spiral lock. This new seal will prevent you from being absorbed into my air like his father intended. Instead, it will allow the boy to commune with your chakra much easier and with training learn to control it. Kurama, my eldest son, I am entrusting you with my heir. Protect him, and when he is ready tell him what must be done in order to gain full control over your power. Kurama could do little more than nod as the ghostly figure began to slowly fade. Before I leave, there is one more thing I must ask of you, my son. Anything, the fox said without hesitation. There is another with my eyes, though they are not his by birth, he is part of an evil force that is gaining strength in the shadows. From the other side I have watched them and I have learned of their horrifying plan, said the silhouette, his eyes downcast. They plan to revive your mother, the Jubi. Kurama's body went rigid. He knew that there was only one way to revive the Jubi, and if it was successful he would cease to exist. My son, my firstborn, I beg of you, find your brothers and sisters. Only when the 9 chosen Jinchuriki fight is won, will this world have a chance at survival. The ghostly form faded away into nothingness, but a soft whisper managed to reach the ears of the Kyuubi before it did. Be strong, my son, and know that I will always love you. For the first time since his birth, Kurama shed a single tear. I won't fail you, and I will always love you too, father. Back in the real world, Naruto tears continued to fall as the Junin and the 2 Chunin who killed his future family approached. The Junin pulled out a kunai once he close enough to the grieving blonde. Raise your head, demon, I want to see your eyes before you die, taunted the Junin. The blonde Jinchuriki made no indication that he heard the Junin and just continued to cry over the loss of his family. Fine, if you won't look me in the eye willingly we'll do it for you, Kotetsu. Said Chunin nodded in understanding before grabbing Naruto's blonde locks and yanking his head up. The sight that met the 3 shinobi facing the blonde was not what they were expecting. Gone were the warm sapphire eyes that Naruto was known for, replaced by a metallic purple that spread over his entire eye, sclera and all. His pupil was replaced with a small black dot with a single concentric ring around it. The Junin and two Chunin were brought out of their shocked stupor by the sound of the blonde speaking, though his voice not entirely his own. You six are a disgrace to my teachings and the ways of the ninja. Now you must pay for your crimes against my heir and for your disgracing of my teachings. Naruto's eyes seemed to glow as a ghostly silhouette appeared above his body. The silhouette had the same eyes as him, only with 4 circles around the pupil along with a Magatama necklace and monk staff. The 3 rookie Chunin holding Naruto dropped his body from fear at this sudden change and quickly fled from the stand, fearing for their lives. You cowards, you'll pay for this. The Junin shouted when he saw the 3 flee. No, it is you who shall pay, said the altered voice of Naruto as a small black rod appeared in his hand. Lunging forward, Naruto impaled the Chunin who had killed Tyuki in the heart before turning his attention to the Chunin who had killed Ayame. Said shinobi tried to run, but Naruto merely raised his left hand towards the Chunin while forming another black rod in his right. Bansho Tenin, the blonde whispered before the Chunin felt himself being pulled backwards by an unseen force, impaling him on the black rod in Naruto's hand. The Junin who had led the group watched this with a mixture of awe and fear in his eyes. First the demon had seemingly created a weapon out of thin air before killing one of his men, and now he had seemingly pulled the other Chunin towards him and impaled him on another of those weird rods. Before he had a chance to even consider fleeing, the Junin found himself on the floor with Naruto standing over him, the silhouette giving him an ethereal appearance. Please, spare me, begged the Junin as sweat began to appear over his body. Did you show mercy to an innocent child? Did you show mercy to the 2 civilians you had murdered? The Junin couldn't answer, his fear stealing his voice from him. Those who do not show mercy do not deserve mercy, Naruto said as he raised his right hand and pointed it at the Junin chest, Shinra Tensei. It happened in an instant. 1 second the Junin was begging for mercy, and the next, his body was nothing more than a pancake on the floor. Naruto looked at the bodies of those he killed with indifference before his new eyes landed on the forms of Tyuki and Ayame. A single tear fell from Naruto's eyes as he used his newfound ability to control gravity to make a makeshift grave for the 2. Placing the 2 corpses into the grave, Naruto smiled sadly as his hands went through a series of hand seals he didn't even know. Tyuki Gigi, Ayame Nisan, I love you. Rest in peace, and one day we will be together again, as a family. Kaden. Fireball Jutsu. Bringing his right hand to his mouth, Naruto spewed out a small ball of fire that burned the bodies of Tyuki and Ayame, a funeral befitting royalty. Naruto turned to the exit of the small stand, debating whether or not to pursue the 3 that had escaped. No, their time will come. For now I need to leave, he said as he made his way towards the back room, planning on using the ally way to escape. He paused mid-step though, and turned back to the 3 corpses of shinobi that lay on the floor. Walking up to one of the Chunin, he bent down and removed the man's headband. Staring at the leaf symbol engraved into the metal, reaching behind him, Naruto pulled out the same knife that had been stabbed into his lung the night he almost died. In one swift motion, Naruto slashed the leaf symbol on the headband with the knife in the same manner that many Rouge ninja did. Putting the knife back, Naruto tied the headband around his forehead and quickly left through the back alleyway, heading in the direction of the main gate. Just outside of Konohagakure, walking down a path that led to the main gate of Konohagakure no Sato was the fabled Toad Sage himself, Jiraiya of the Sannin. A slight breeze ruffled his long spiky white hair that he kept in a ponytail, stopping the Toad Sage in his tracks. He had learned long ago to trust his instincts, and thanks to his training with the great Toad Sage of Mount Myobokuzan, he had come to understand the strange methods that nature would use to signify something. The wind is changing, thought the Toad Sage as he watched the leaves fluttering in the wind. A great change has happened, but the question is what? His answer came to him when he saw a young boy maybe 8 years old running towards him. The boy stopped a few yards away from him, panting slightly. He had on a black skin-tight shirt that was ripped in a couple places, his black baggy pants seemed to be stained with blood, but what caught the Toad Sage's attention was his face. Spiky blonde hair stuck up in every direction on top of his head, while metallic purple eyes stared back at him with a dot-like pupil. The Rinnegan. To think that I would see those eyes again in this life, but how is it possible that this boy has those eyes? Thought Jiraiya as he continued to observe the boy, his eyes darting to the slashed Konoha headband on the boy's forehead. What? He's too young to have graduated already, and he doesn't even have any standard genin equipment. Who is this boy? The sage kept looking for any identifying marks on the boy's body, but his eyes widened when he saw the familiar whisker-like marks on the boy's face. Naruto. Jiraiya whispered in shock. How do you know who I am? Asked Naruto as his Rinnegan began to glow slightly. Jiraiya saw the glow and immediately understood what it meant. I don't mean you any harm, I just want to talk. My name is Jiraiya, and I know who you are because my sensei was the Sandaime Hokage. You interrupted more than one of our meetings, he said with a chuckle at the end. You were taught by that backstabbing traitor. Naruto said, his contempt for the man clear in his voice. Jiraiya was once again shocked. The last time he had seen Naruto, the boy cared so much for the Sandaime. What the hell have you done now, sensei? Thought Jiraiya as he knelt down to be at Naruto's level. What happened? Asked the Toad Sage, fearing the worst. The last student he had only activated the Rinnegan because of a traumatic event. Could this be the change the wind predicted? Naruto didn't speak for a few seconds, silently determining whether or not to trust this man. Tell him, Kit. He may be a student of that traitorous cage, but I can sense that he truly cares for you, Kurama said, unwilling to let his host make a foolish mistake. You will need a human sensei to teach you what I cannot. If what I sense is true, this man not only cares for you, but is powerful enough to help you become stronger. Outwardly Naruto nodded in understanding, making Jiraiya think he came to a decision. All right, I'll tell you. The Sandaime Hokage ordered a team of 5 Chunin led by a Junin to kill me, but not before they killed the 2 people who had just offered to adopt me. Naruto's voice broke slightly at the mention of Tyuki and Ayame, but continued on. The last thing I remember before blacking out was watching 2 of the Chunin kill Tyuki Jiji and Ayame Nisan. When I came to, the Junin leading the group was dead as well as the 2 Chunin who carried out the deed. Konoha has proven that they will never accept me, and if they won't accept me as an ally, then they will have to deal with me as an enemy. Naruto slipped into his taijutsu stance, making his intentions clear that if Jiraiya tried to take him back he wouldn't go quietly. Jiraiya remained silent throughout Naruto's story and couldn't keep the look of utter shock off of his face. Sarutobi-sensei, what the hell have you done? Thought Jiraiya as he stared off into space, trying to understand what the hell could have happened. Seeing Naruto in a taijutsu stance, Jiraiya made up his mind on the spot and got up, the winds of change blowing once again. All right, kid, come with me, I'll take you away from here. Naruto seemed slightly surprised at this, but after a mental nudge from Kurama, agreed to go with the Toad Sage. Whatever Konoha has done, whether on Sensei's order or not, is unforgivable. They have betrayed Minato's legacy, and doing so, betrayed me as well. Minato, if you can hear me, I swear to you I will make Naruto a shinobi to surpass all others, and maybe even surpass the Sage of the 6 Paths himself. Naruto and Jiraiya were walking along one of the more deserted roads in the Land of Fire, heading south towards Tanzaku-gai. The two traveled in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. What have you done, sensei? How could you have betrayed Minato and I so easily? Thought Jiraiya as he glanced at the young blonde that was with him. Even though he's a Jinchuriki, I can't any excess chakra coming off of his body. But what's more confusing is his Rinnegan. It only has 1 ring around the pupil, but when I found Nagato his eyes had 4 rings. Could it be that Naruto has a different kind of Rinnegan? While Jiraiya was focused on trying to solve the mystery behind Naruto's eyes, Naruto was having a conversation with Kurama. I don't get it, Kurama. Why does it feel like something is eating away at my chakra? Asked the blonde. Kurama took a minute to respond, curious about that himself. It's your eyes, Kit. You need to quit channeling your chakra into them. Nodding in understanding, Naruto closed his eyes and focused on stopping the flow of chakra to his eyes. When he felt the drain on his chakra stop, he opened his eyes again and they were back to their normal sapphire. Hey Naruto, Jiraiya said, getting the blonde's attention, when we reach Tanzakugai, we'll start your training with a quick assessment of what you're already capable of. After that I'll give you an exercise to do while I go back to Konoha. Naruto frowned at the mention of his old village. Why are you going back there? You going to go see the Hokage or something? Jiraiya nodded the affirmative, a frown on his face as well. Yeah, I want some answers and the Hokage is the only one who has the answers. Naruto seemed to accept this and the two continued the rest of the way in a comfortable silence. It was a few more hours before the two travelers walked over a hill and saw Tanzakugai in the distance. We're here, Tanzakugai, said Jiraiya as the two continued on into the village. It didn't take long for them to find a suitable hotel to stay at for a while. After paying the owner for a weeks-long stay, Jiraiya led Naruto back into the woods around the village. Stopping in a clearing not too far from the town, Jiraiya turned to his newest apprentice. Alright Gaki, let's see what you can do. Lesson 1. Taijutsu. Naruto quickly slipped into his opening stance before charging the Toad Sage, going for a quick right jab. A straightforward attack. Well, I guess that's to be expected from a little kid, thought Jiraiya as he moved to block the jab, only to be forced to duck under a kick at the last second. A feint? That kind of taijutsu isn't taught at the academy, Jiraiya thought in surprise as he prepared to block a spin kick to the ribs but received a roundhouse to the side of his head. Stumbling back slightly, Jiraiya stared at Naruto in surprise before he smirked. Despite his age, his taijutsu is very advanced and very unique. Not many people can make use of a style like this if it's used correctly, and even fewer know how to counter. Not willing to take another hit like that, Jiraiya decided to end things quick. Moving to block another feint, Jiraiya easily shifted to block the true attack and threw Naruto away. Not bad Gaki, your taijutsu is pretty advanced for your age. But you rely too much on feints to get your hits. Any skilled ninja will be able to see that and come up with an effective counter. However, if you use less feints and mix them into a direct style, your attacks will be almost impossible to predict and even harder to counter, Jiraiya said once Naruto had picked himself up. Said blonde nodded in understanding. Kurama had told him the same thing on more than one occasion. Alright, now let's test your genjutsu. Actually Jiraiya-sensei, I suck at genjutsu. My chakra control isn't good enough for me to place even the simplest genjutsu and I can't even break out of the simplest ones either, Naruto said with a slight frown. Jiraiya furrowed his eyebrow at this. Something doesn't make sense. If his chakra control is as bad as he says it is, then he should have a good amount of chakra flowing out of his body. That's when he noticed something different about Naruto, more specifically his eyes. Naruto, what happened to your Rinnegan? He said in utter shock. Huh, oh, there was this weird drain on my chakra from my eyes, so I cut the flow, Naruto said in a matter-of-fact tone. Stop the flow of chakra to his eyes? Could he be able to deactivate his Rinnegan at will like the Sharingan or Byakugan? Naruto, send some chakra to your eyes. Naruto closed his eyes and focused a little bit of his chakra into his eyes, only just realizing how much easier it was for him to use his chakra. What the hell? Naruto thought before he opened his eyes, revealing the metallic purple with one ring. So I was right, his Rinnegan is different than Nagato's. Alright Gaki, I'm going to put a basic genjutsu on you and I want you to break out of it, Jiraiya said before performing two hand seals, causing the world around Naruto blur slightly before stabilizing. When Naruto looked around, nothing had changed but there was a slight blue glow around him. Hey Kurama, what's with the blue glow? That's the chakra forming the genjutsu around you. Your Rinnegan must be able to see through genjutsu like the Sharingan and Byakugan, now try and dispel it by disrupting your chakra flow. Naruto closed his eyes while forming the ram seal and focused on his chakra. Feeling it flowing through his body, he quickly stopped it, immediately releasing the genjutsu. Naruto looked on in surprise as everything blurred again before returning to normal with Jiraiya standing in front of him. How the heck did I do that? My sensei in the academy said it was impossible for me to dispel genjutsu. Jiraiya remained silent as he thought this over himself. It must be your Rinnegan. When you awakened it, it must have granted you perfect control over your chakra. It seems that your eyes hold many secrets, and you'll have to be the one to discover them. For now though, let's finish your test. Lesson 3. Ninjutsu. Tell me all of the jutsu you know how to use. Let's see. I know the transformation, the idea behind the substitution, and one weird jutsu I don't even remember learning, said Naruto after a few moments of thought. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow at that last bit, a jutsu he doesn't even remember learning. Alright Gaki, show them to me. No sooner had he finished than was he looking at an exact copy of himself. Not bad kid, your transformation's pretty good, now try the substitution, but don't be disappointed if you don't get it on the first try. Naruto dropped the transformation and formed the hand seals they were taught in the academy for the substitution. Focusing on a nearby rock, Naruto vanished in a poof of smoke only to reappear where the rock once was. Incredible, he was able to perform a jutsu he had never tried before with such perfection. Could his eyes have played a part in that? Jiraiya thought as Naruto walked back over to him. Okay kid, now try that one weird jutsu you were talking about. Naruto closed his eyes to help focus before raising his right hand towards some trees, Shinra Tensai. The minute the words passed his lips, an unseen force ripped the ground apart before completely uprooting the trees his hand was facing. Whoa, was all Naruto could say when he saw how much damage his jutsu had done. Jiraiya was no better, but he managed to recover from surprise much faster than the blonde. It looks like he has already unlocked the first of the paths that the sage was famous for. Deciding to test a theory, Jiraiya turned to the still stunned blonde. Hey Naruto, think hard on this, where did you learn that jutsu? It was a few minutes before Naruto answered his sensei. Diva Path, he whispered in confusion. Turning to his new sensei, Naruto saw a look of understanding on his face. Sensei, what the heck is a Diva Path? According to legend, it was one of the 6 paths that the sage of the 6 paths was said to use. I don't know the names of all of them, but it's safe to assume that when your need is greatest your eyes will unlock the other paths, said Jiraiya before he turned and motioned for Naruto to follow him back to town. Alright Naruto, I'm going to head to Konoha tonight, so tomorrow I want you to practice with your 3 jutsu. Transform yourself to look like some of the villagers, but try and do it with only a short glance at them, which will also help increase your observation skills. For your substitution, work on decreasing the time it takes you to perform them. Your Shinra Tensai, however, I want you to work using it with as little chakra as possible. Once you do that for a few hours, meditate in the room until I return. Once I'm back, your real training will begin. By the time Jiraiya had finished explaining what he wanted Naruto to do while he was gone, they had made it back to the hotel. Walking into the room they rented, Naruto immediately went to one of the beds and got ready to sleep, wanting all the rest he could get for his training tomorrow. Jiraiya watched all this from the doorway. Once he was certain Naruto had fallen asleep, he quietly left the room and made his way towards the edge of town. Sensei, you better have a damn good explanation for this, or I swear Konoha will be down its last Sannin, Jiraiya thought before he disappeared in a burst of speed. Konohagakure no Sato. The next morning, Hiruzen Sarutobi sat behind his desk, going through the already large pile of paperwork that was on his desk. Damn you Minato, you just had to go and get yourself killed and leave me to deal with all of this shit. Thought the Sandaime Hokage as he stamped yet another mission report as a success. What I wouldn't give for Naruto to barge in right now, He sighed, but nearly had a heart attack when he received a replay. I'm afraid that won't be happening ever again. In the blink of an eye, the Hokage was on the other side of the room in full battle gear with 4 Anbu flanking him. Whoever they were expecting, it certainly wasn't one of Sarutobi's old students. Jiraiya, what a pleasant surprise, but must you use the window, the Sandaime said before he dismissed his Anbu and put his Hokage robes back on. Cut the crap, sensei, I'm not in the mood, said Jiraiya in an uncharacteristically serious voice. Sarutobi was taken aback slightly at the tone in his former student's voice, but quickly adopted a similar look. What is it, Jiraiya? Is this about Orochimaru? No, Jiraiya said before narrowing his eyes in a glare at his former sensei, it's about you, or more precisely what you've done. Sarutobi stood for a moment, too stunned by his former pupil's response to do anything else. What I have done? What are you talking about, Jiraiya? I'm talking about what you did to Naruto, said the Toad Sage forcefully, causing his sensei to take a step back in shock. Never in the time he had known Jiraiya, had the sage ever spoken to him in such a voice, but then what the sage said finally sank in. What about Naruto? What's happened to him? Said Sarutobi, his anxiousness rising. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow at the tone in his sensei's voice. He's either better at hiding how he feels than I thought, or maybe he wasn't involved in the attack. Your shinobi happened, sensei. I ran into Naruto as he was leaving the village after being attacked. The Hokage's eyes widened at this revelation, but that's not all. The group of shinobi that attacked him also killed the ramen chef Tsuki Ichiraku and his daughter Ayame. Naruto managed to escape before they could kill him, but not before learning who ordered the attack. Sarutobi was about to ask who ordered the attack, until he remembered what Jiraiya had said when he first arrived. You think I ordered the attack on Naruto? That's absurd. He shouted, his anger growing. Well, at this point, sensei, I trust Naruto's word more than I trust yours, said Jiraiya from his place on the windowsill. Sarutobi paused slightly. Jiraiya had always valued his input and always trusted his word. For Jiraiya to trust someone else's word over his was surprising to say the least. Shaking off his shock, Sarutobi sat down on the couch in his office. What did Naruto tell you exactly? He told me that 5 Chunin and 1 Junin attacked him and the Ichirakus. He fought hard and managed to escape with relatively few injuries, said Jiraiya, purposely keeping key details of the attack out. I see, that explains why 3 of my shinobi and the Ichirakus are dead, sighed Sarutobi as he pulled out his pipe and lit it. I never mentioned anything about the Ichirakus or any of your shinobi dying as a result of the attack, Sarutobi, said Jiraiya, his glare intensifying. Sarutobi merely sighed once again before meeting Jiraiya's glare with a passive expression on his face. Jiraiya couldn't believe what he had just discovered. His sensei, the man he saw as a father figure, had ordered for his godson to be assassinated. Why? Was the only thing the sage could say as he fought to keep his anger in check. The Sandaime Hokage puffed his pipe a few times before he answered. The elders and council went over my head, Jiraiya, my hands were tied. Cut the crap, Sarutobi. I saw the bodies of the 3 dead shinobi. All of them were fiercely loyal to you. They would never have listened to the council or elders. Now tell me why, shouted Jiraiya, not even attempting to hide his rage anymore. You always were well informed, Jiraiya, said Sarutobi as he reached into his robes and pulled out a small wooden scroll. I did it because of this. With a flick of his wrist, the old Kage threw the scroll to Jiraiya, who caught it with ease. Opening the scroll caused Jiraiya's eyes to widen in shock. This is, he stuttered while reading over the scroll at a speed that would leave Might Guy dizzy. A detailed description of the Rinnegan and a description of how it is activated. Some of my Anbu found it while out on a mission. From what I can gather, the scroll was written by the Sage of the 6 Paths himself as a message for his successor, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, said Sarutobi, his passive expression never faltering. I felt it was in the village's best interest for Naruto to awaken the Rinnegan, giving Konoha all 3 of the legendary dojutsu. Imagine Jiraiya, a team with all three dojutsus would be nearly invincible, given the proper training, a team like that could easily surpass you and the other Sannin. Said Toad. Sannin looked up from the scroll, a look of shock on his face. You were willing to risk killing Naruto just so he could awaken the Rinnegan. What the hell happened to you, sensei? You're not the same man I once considered a father. Jiraiya rolled up the scroll, put it back on the desk before standing up and reaching into his red coat. Once again the Anbu made an appearance, not willing to risk Jiraiya pulling out a weapon. They were slightly surprised when he pulled out an old, beaten Konoha headband, all but Sarutobi, who recognized the piece of metal as Jiraiya's old headband. All of their eyes widened though when Jiraiya pulled out a kunai and with the skill and precision of a master, slashed straight through the leaf symbol. So this is the path you wish to take, Jiraiya? Sarutobi asked as he slowly stood up. Jiraiya merely glared at the Hokage, causing his Anbu guard to tense in preparation of a fight. Naruto is and will always be my first priority. It's time I start taking my role as the boy's godfather seriously. If that means abandoning Konoha, then so be it, said Jiraiya before he dropped a smoke bomb and shot out the window. After the Anbu cleared the smoke with a low-level Fuden Jutsu, Sarutobi walked back over to his desk and took a seat. Well, it seems we have 2 new rogue ninja to add to the bingo book. Send word that Jiraiya is to be marked as an S-rank traitor to Konoha with a kill on-sight order, but have young Naruto marked as AC-ranked runaway with a capture-alive order, said the Hokage before he reached for the scroll that Jiraiya had left on the desk. His eyes shot open, however, when all he found was the surface of his desk. So young Naruto did indeed awaken the Rinnegan. That explains why the Junin I sent was found completely crushed. This is a most disturbing turn of events. The Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune, who also wields the Rinnegan, is destined to become a very dangerous shinobi, but one trained by Jiraiya would be truly frightening. We must get Naruto back into Konoha and convince him to join the village, one way or another. Tanzaku Gai. Naruto sat meditating in his room, a light blue aura surrounding his body. Jiraiya sensei was right, Kurama. I think my Rinnegan has granted me perfect control over my chakra, thought Naruto as he continued to focus on his chakra core. I'm not surprised, Kit. The Rinnegan holds many mysteries, not even I and the other Biju know much about it. Sage Gigi never really used it after the 9 of us were born, said Kurama from inside his new seal. Sage Gigi? Who's that, Kurama? The sage of the 6 paths, the founder of the ninja world, and my father, said Kurama as he lay down in his cage, knowing this conversation was going to take a while. What? Your father was the founder of the ninja world? Thought Naruto in surprise, nearly losing his meditation. Kurama nodded his head. Yes, focus, kid, and yes, he was my father. I talked to him recently, yesterday when you awakened your Rinnegan. But how? He's dead, isn't he? Naruto thought as he regained control over his meditation. Kurama nodded again. Yes, he is dead, but as he reminded me, he who controls the Rinnegan is above the cycle of life and death. He used the last of his chakra to send his spirit back to this world to grant you his blessings. But before he faded away, he also asked me to do something for him. Really? What did he ask of you? Kurama took a deep breath before continuing. He told me of a great evil hiding in the shadows of this world. Sage Gigi said that unless the 9 chosen Jinchuriki fight is won, this world will cease to exist. We must gather the other 8 Jinchuriki and only then will we be able to defeat this evil. For now though, focus on your training. You must become stronger if you want to survive long enough to gather the other Jinchuriki. Well then, I guess I better get stronger as fast as possible. With that, Naruto cut the mental connection with his tenant and focused back on his meditation. 2 hours later, Jiraiya walked into the hotel room he and Naruto were staying in with a scowl on his face. Why would Sarutobi do something like this? This is the kind of thing I'd expect someone like Danzo to do, not the Sandame, he thought as he looked over to his new apprentice only to have his eyes widen in surprise. Naruto was sitting in the basic lotus position with his hands resting on his knees. There was a blue aura around his body, but what surprised Jiraiya was that Naruto was floating above his bed. It must be the gravitational manipulation that is granted by the Diva path, Jiraiya thought, remembering what he had read in the scroll he stole from his former sensei. Hey Gaki, called Jiraiya, jarring the blonde Jinchuriki from his meditation. Said blonde opened his eyes, revealing his Rinnegan as he slowly floated back down to his bed. Naruto closed his eyes again, only this time when he opened them they were his normal sapphire blue. Do you know how you were doing that? Asked Jiraiya. Naruto nodded his head before speaking. Yeah, Kurama helped me figure it out. Kurama? Asked Jiraiya with a raised eyebrow. Yeah, Kurama, but I guess you would know him better as the Kyuubi no Kitsune. What? Shouted Jiraiya. How do you know about him, and how do you know you can trust him? I found out about him 2 years ago when a mob of villagers nearly killed me, said Naruto, causing Jiraiya to scowl. After he healed me, he offered to help me train, and thanks to him I learned some basic chakra control exercises like tree climbing and water walking. I see, said Jiraiya as he thought over what his godson had told him, but how does he know about the Rinnegan? Before Naruto could answer, his furry tenant decided to speak up. Kit, let me take over for a second to speak to him. Naruto mentally nodded and his features began to change, his whiskers darkened, his nails lengthened into claws, and his eyes bled to red with a slit pupil. Perhaps it would be better if I explained things personally, said the Kurama-possessed Naruto. Jiraiya, who had been preparing a seal to suppress the demonic chakra, narrowed his eyes at the now feral-looking host. What have you done with Naruto? Jiraiya asked, his voice dripping with venom. Kurama merely raised an eyebrow in response. The kid's fine, he can retake control at any moment, and before you ask, yes, the seal is still intact. Naruto just let me have control of his body for a while. It's quite a common occurrence with Jinchuriki actually. Jiraiya seemed to accept this and relaxed slightly, though he kept his seal tag out just in case things got hostile. You said you would explain, said the toad sage, his glare still in place. Kurama closed his eyes, thought for a moment. Very well, the reason I know about the Rinnegan is because my father was the original wielder of the Rinnegan. Jiraiya looked confused for a moment before his eyes shot open in shock. Wait, you mean? Kurama nodded. Yes, my father was the sage of the 6 paths. He created my siblings and I by separating the power of the Jubi into 9 parts. But let's get back on track. What I know of the Rinnegan is actually very limited. The sage created us shortly before he passed on and only used the techniques granted to him through the 6 paths, but he did use the power of the Diva path. Thanks to the gravitational manipulation, the sage created a prison to seal away the body of the Jubi, the moon. Jiraiya's jaw dropped at this, but he quickly recovered. To any normal person, that story would sound completely ridiculous, but I'm not exactly normal, even by ninja standards. So it's safe to assume that with the awakening of his Rinnegan, Naruto has already unlocked the Diva path. Yes, but I don't know when or how he will unlock the other paths. By the time we were born, Sage Gigi already had a fully developed Rinnegan and he rarely used the 6 paths techniques, said Kurama with a thoughtful look on his face. I believe this scroll has the answers we need, said Jiraiya as he pulled the wooden scroll out of his coat. Apparently, the sage of the 6 paths knew that his successor would one day awaken the Rinnegan and left descriptions of its inner workings. The Kuramafied Naruto's eyes widened in surprise. So that's what Sage Gigi was doing during his last few days of life. It seems that the more we discover about him, the more questions appear. Well, I suppose I should let the kid have control back, he's getting a little impatient. Don't worry about training the kid to use my chakra, I'll handle that aspect of his training when he's ready. For now, just work on his regular ninja skills. Once you feel he's at an acceptable level, ask him what the mission the sage of the 6 paths gave him is. Before Jiraiya had a chance to ask what the Kyuubi meant, Naruto's features had returned to normal. Oh well, guess I'll just have to wait to figure out what the Kyuubi meant, the Toad Sage thought before addressing his godson. Alright Gaki, before we continue your training, I want you to read this scroll. It will help you understand your Rinnegan better and how to train to use its powers. Tossing the scroll to the young blonde, Jiraiya sat down on his bed and took up the lotus position, only instead his hands were curled into loose fists pushed against each other. Once you have finished reading the scroll and you feel that you have an understanding of what it is trying to tell you, let me know and we will move on in your training. Naruto gave his sensei a strange look, but shrugged and settled into a comfortable position. Opening the old scroll with care, Naruto started reading it, only for his eyes to widen at the first few lines. To Naruto, my one true heir and successor. You are probably wondering who I am and how I know you. Well, allow me to introduce myself. Though I gave my birth name up years ago, I am known as the Sage of the Six Paths, the founder of the ninja world, and as to how I know you. Well, that is a bit more complicated. You see, Naruto, during my time on this earth I fought against and defeated what is known as the Jubi, the ten-tailed beast. I could not, however, slay the demon, so I did the next best thing. I sealed the beast's power and soul within me, making me the first of what would later become known as Jinchuriki. As the Jinchuriki of the Jubi, I received a small amount of its abilities, one of which allowed me to see brief glimpses of the future. Because of this ability I learned a horrible truth, that darkness would once again spread over this world and destroy it. But as I learned long ago, there is a balance to everything, and so I began trying to find that balance, the light that could destroy the darkness of the world. I searched for years trying to find any hint or trace of what could balance the darkness to come, searching both in the past and the future. My answer came when I found you, Naruto. You are the light that balances the darkness. However, I could not see any farther into the future once you were revealed to be my one true heir. It is because of this that I have left this scroll for you, to help you grow and to hopefully return peace to this world. Below is a detailed description of what the true Rinnegan is capable of, as well as a special seal of my own design that contains numerous scrolls filled with my knowledge of chakra and all things related to the ninja way. Good luck, Naruto, and I hope that one day you will be able to defeat the darkness in this world and restore peace. Know that I am forever with you, and will be watching over you from the next world. The Sage of the Six Paths. Though the message was brief, Naruto could tell that the sage truly believed in him. Holding back the tears that threatened to fall, Naruto unfurled the scroll some more and found the description the sage had mentioned. The Rinnegan is very mysterious dojutsu, in the fact that not even its wielder can understand its true powers. It is only speculation, but seeing as neither of my sons awakened the Rinnegan and everything that happened before I awakened it, I believe that the Rinnegan will only awaken in times of great distress. Who it awakens in, however, or how they are related remains a mystery to me, though it is possible that I was the originator of the dojutsu and you, Naruto, may be a distant descendant of mine. During my travels, I faced many hardships that pushed me to my utter breaking point of sanity. I believe these hardships were a test to see whether I would be what the people call a god of creation, or the destroyer. When it first awakens, the Rinnegan will turn its user's eyes into a metallic purple with a dot-like pupil and one concentric ring around the pupil. This represents the first level of Rinnegan. This level grants the user the power to wield all 5 types of nature transformations. Along with the nature transformation, the first level of Rinnegan also unlocks the first of the 6 paths techniques, the Diva Path and Animal Path. With the Diva Path comes the ability to use gravitational manipulation to attract or repel objects. The Animal Path is a little less complicated. This path allows one to summon any creature that you can imagine, giving you a near limitless amount of animal summons to fight alongside you. With the second level of the Rinnegan, a second concentric ring will appear around the pupil. With the activation of the second level of the Rinnegan, the wielder is granted the ability to combine the 5 basic nature transformations in order to form the advanced chakra natures, such as Mokudan, Hyodan, Shodan and so on and so forth. It also awakens the next 2 paths, the human path and the Preta path. The human path grants the user the ability to touch a person's very soul, and should the need arise, rip their soul from their body. This path also has a second ability. Simply by placing your hand on your target's head, you can read every thought they have ever had, see every memory they've experienced and learn everything they have ever learned. The Preta path is more of a supportive and defensive technique. This path allows one to absorb chakra into their body and add to their own core. The third level of the Rinnegan, following the pattern of the other levels, adds a third concentric ring around the pupil. With the activation of the third level, the Rinnegan grants its wielder the ability to wield the, in your time extinct, Hiden and Maiden styles of ninjutsu. This level will also complete the 6-path set of techniques by unlocking the Asura path and the Naraka path. Even as I write this, I cringe at the effects of the Asura path. I never quite got used to the sensation, but maybe you will. The Asura path allows the user to augment their body with mechanized armor, extra limbs and other various robotic weapons. The Naraka path is the only true supportive path in the Rinnegan's arsenal. It allows you to summon the King of Hell to interrogate a target by judging whether they are lying or not. Should the victim lie, the King of Hell will suck out their life force, but should they speak the truth, they will be spared. Also, this path is considered the medic of the 6 paths techniques since you can heal any wound, no matter how severe, in seconds and revive the fallen so long as they have not been dead more than 12 hours. Though I am known as the sage of the 6 paths, I have kept a secret from the rest of the world. There is a 7th path, the outer path. This path can only be obtained by achieving the 4th and final level of the Rinnegan. Though its power is great, the cost is heavy. To achieve the final level you must be betrayed by someone close to your heart. I pray you never have to know this pain, but I fear that you will, so I will tell you of the outer path's abilities. The outer path grants one the ability to control life and death through the use of 2 jutsu, the outer path, Samsara of Heavenly Life Jutsu, and the outer path, Samsara of Hell's Judgment Jutsu. With the Heavenly Life Jutsu, one can return the souls of the deceased to the world of the living, so long as their body is still intact. The Hell's Judgment, on the other hand, can steal the souls of the victims from them, much like the human path though on a grander scale, and seal them away inside the King of Hell for all eternity. While I deemed it necessary to help you understand the Rinnegan better, I will not tell you everything. Learning things for yourself is how one grows, and I wish you luck, Naruto, in discovering the things I have not told you. I know you will not let me down, and I look forward to the day we can speak face to face, though I hope it is not for a very long time. Naruto sat wide-eyed at what the Rinnegan was capable of, but what shocked the most was the power of the outer path. You must be betrayed by someone close to your heart to achieve this power. Sorry, Sage Gigi, your fears were right, I have felt that pain. But then why don't I have the 4th level if I have already experienced the pain of betrayal? I don't know, Kit. The Rinnegan works in mysterious ways, so much so that not even Sage Gigi himself knew all of its abilities. But I can speculate. It's possible that to achieve the final level and awaken the outer path, you must first master the 6 paths, or it's possible that that old fool of Cage wasn't close enough to your heart for you to experience the pain Sage Gigi was talking about, said Kurama as he read the scroll through Naruto's eyes. You might be right, Kurama, but only time will tell, I suppose, thought Naruto before he unrolled the scroll even more and found a complex sealing array. This must be the seal he mentioned. Naruto slowly placed his hand over the seal. Nothing happened, so he tried channeling some of his chakra into it, but still nothing happened. What the hell? Why can't I undo the seal? Naruto thought, his frustration evident. Kit, Sage Gigi said he personally designed that seal to contain all of his knowledge that he wanted to pass on to you. Do you honestly think he wouldn't set up a number of precautions to make sure no one else could access the knowledge? Naruto outwardly sighed, but nodded in agreement nonetheless. You probably right, Kurama. Well, I guess it's time to wake up Jiraiya-sensei. Jiraiya-sensei, I've finished the scroll, now what do we do? Jiraiya made no outward signs that had heard Naruto, but just as the blonde was about to throw a pillow at him, he cracked one eye open. So you did finish, very well then, we'll continue your training in little while. For now, meditate, try and draw on your gravitational powers again, but this time without Kurama's help. With that, Jiraiya closed his eye and continued his own meditation while Naruto just sighed and mumbled something about lazy senseis, before resuming his meditative pose and followed his sensei's instructions. The hours passed slowly for the two meditating shinobi. Naruto had a little difficulty in accessing his gravitational powers, but eventually he was able to use the manipulation and began levitating above his bed, just as Jiraiya had found him. Jiraiya, on the other hand, had used the time to gather a small amount of senjutsu chakra, enough that he could sense the things around him but not enough for him to lose control and change into a frog. Using the abilities of senjutsu, he was able to monitor his new student's progress while at the same time scouting the area for any potential threats. So I was right, the Rinnegan has given him perfect control over his chakra, despite his large reserves. It also seems that whenever he uses his gravitational manipulation, his Rinnegan subconsciously activates. Could that be a type of natural defense? The Toad Sage continued to ponder over the possibilities while he changed his attention to the town and surrounding forests. Everything looks clear. The only chakra signatures around that are above civilian level are two shinobi that are hanging out in a bar, if I remember correctly. It should be safe to train the kid here for a few days before moving on. The less attention we bring, the better. Jiraiya released the senjutsu chakra he had gathered and opened his eyes to see his young charge levitating over his bed. Well, looks like it's time to another gaki. Hey, Naruto, wake up, he said while throwing a pillow at the blonde. To his surprise, the pillow stopped mere inches from the blonde's face and just hung in midair. Well, that's unexpected. Looks like he can create a gravitational field around him using his diva path. That could come in handy during a fight, thought Jiraiya as Naruto slowly lowered himself back to his bed and threw the pillow back at him. Swatting the pillow away like a fly, the Toad Sage addressed the young blonde. So you ready to continue on with your training, gaki? Naruto didn't hesitate in his response. Yes, Jiraiya-sensei. Said Sanin couldn't help but smirk at being called sensei again. He honestly missed the feeling. Alright then, let's head into the forest and we'll begin. With that, the two quickly left town and found themselves in the same clearing as before. Jiraiya turned to Naruto, who was standing calmly in front of him, though his eyes betrayed his excitement. Smirking, Jiraiya quickly decided what they would start with. Okay, Naruto, since you already have perfect chakra control thanks to your Rinnegan, we can skip that portion of your training. So to start with, I'll teach you a few low-level jutsu you can practice with. Naruto nodded in understanding, his Rinnegan still activated from his meditation. He watched as Jiraiya went through a few hand seals, ending with the tiger. His eyes widened though, when he realized he could see the way the chakra was moving inside his sensei as he prepared the jutsu. He was brought out of his stupor by the sound of his sensei's voice, Kaden, Fireball Jutsu. Jiraiya put his right hand up to his mouth and launched a medium-sized ball of fire of a nearby tree, destroying it with ease. Alright Naruto, let's see what you got, Jiraiya said as he showed the blonde the hand seals for the jutsu. Nodding in understanding, Naruto slowly went through the hand seals while moving his chakra the same way Jiraiya's had. With a cry of, Kaden, Fireball Jutsu, Naruto launched a ball of fire the same size as Jiraiya's at the tree, incinerating it. Naruto ended the jutsu and turned to his sensei to see how he did, only to be met with the shocked face of the Toad Sage. Sensei. Hello Earth to Sensei, anybody home? Jiraiya just stood there, staring at where the tree once stood. Impossible, even with the perfect chakra control granted by the Rinnegan, There's no way he should have been able to use a jutsu like that after only seeing it once. The Toad Sage's thoughts continued to run rampant as he tried to figure out exactly how Naruto had managed to perform the jutsu almost flawlessly. Wait a minute, according to the description the sage left in the scroll, he purposely left certain aspect of the Rinnegan out because he wanted Naruto to learn them for himself. Is it possible that the Rinnegan has a similar ability to the Sharingan? Finally managing to get over his shock, Jiraiya turned his gaze to the blonde who had destroyed 3 more trees while he waited. Naruto, said the Toad Sage, catching the blonde's attention. Yeah, sensei, Naruto asked as he walked back over to Jiraiya. When I was showing you the jutsu, what exactly did you see? Naruto thought for a moment before answering the question. Well, while you were going through the hand signs for the jutsu I saw the way your chakra was moving. When I tried it for myself, I moved my chakra the same way I saw yours move and boom, giant fireball. It's not the same, but still it's similar to the Sharingan. He can see how the chakra moves inside the body for a jutsu, but when he does it himself, it doesn't move the chakra for him, he has to do it himself. Still, that is a major advantage both in battle and in training, thought Jiraiya. Returning his attention to his student, he motioned for him to get behind him. I'm going to show you another jutsu, Naruto, this time one for Doden. Naruto nodded while he watched his sensei's chakra move to form the jutsu. Jiraiya ended the chain of hand seals in the snake seal, Doden, earth wall. Slamming his hands on the ground, a 6-foot wall of earth rose from the ground in front of Jiraiya. As you can probably tell, this jutsu is a defensive type. This way you have a defensive and an offensive jutsu in your arsenal. I won't teach you any more however until you have mastered these two, understand? Yes, Jiraiya-sensei, Naruto said before he began practicing with his 2 jutsu, destroying a good portion of the clearing they were in. Jiraiya watched all of this with a smirk on his face. He truly is your son Minato, and it seems that he inherited more than just your looks. Because of his heritage alone, his potential was already great, but now that he has the Rinnegan along with the Kyuubi and myself training him, I'm almost afraid of how powerful he'll become. Jiraiya felt a chill run down his spine at that thought, but it only caused his smirk to widen. But I suppose the anticipation of what your student will become is half the fun of being a sensei.